We're going to be talking about cast predictions. We've looked at kind of all the info that's been released so far. We're going to kind of be going through them tribe by tribe, talking about what we like, what we don't like. But to kind of start us off, I want to talk a little bit about what we look for in good players. I'm going to pass it to you, Kale. Kale, what are you looking for in a good player, and what do you look for that indicates somebody might be not a great player?
Survivor is a weird game in the sense that, you're going to get a different type of winner every time. You'll go from Erica to what was considered the GOAT and Tony just 2 seasons ago, and then you could go all the way back. But I'll keep it simple. Adaptability is my biggest thing. Reading the room, reading the jury, essentially is exactly what happens, and that all comes from making relationships and knowing who you're playing with and what they're all about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear that. Toast, what about you?
I mean, I totally agree with that. I think everything that you said makes total sense. Something I'd just like to add is that, usually there are players that fall into the same age range, the same sort of archetypes. So really we're looking for people that have the qualities that past winners have had, because we can use that as sort of like a heuristic, right? We know what it takes to be a winner and what kind of winners there are, and we have that as our, reference point. So we can use a lot of the information that we have available to us right now to sort of dissect and analyze and see if, any patterns sort of come up. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, you talked a little bit there about, archetypes. How do you feel about archetypes? And do you think that say there's 2 people with the same archetype, as we kind of talk about them in Survivor, do those people work well together, or should they stay as far away from each other as possible?
It's interesting. I mean, honestly, as far as casting is concerned, right, you're less likely to see 2 people of the same archetype on the same season. I mean, you have the mafioso type archetype that's, a lot of people are interested in. And like Survivor Redemption Island, you have 2 mafiosos, right? You have Russell Hanson and Boston Rob, and we know how that played out, right? So usually you don't see 2 people of the same sort of play style. And obviously, when production is making cast decisions, they don't know exactly how players are going to play, but they sort of have some sort of mentality and some sort of idea about how people are going to look and how they're going to play on the island. So I would say that you would want to kind of align with archetypes that, in the past, people of the same archetype as you have aligned with and have been successful with. And there's a lot of patterns like that you can look through and see. But yeah. I mean, this is really getting into the weeds, right? We have 18 players here. We can look at them at face value and kind of see, what kind of attributes they bring to the table individually,
Yeah, totally. Totally. I think for me, just to add, first of all, I totally agree with you, Kale, that, adaptability is the name of the game. And I think specifically one of the top skills that I'm looking for as I look through these cast members is self-awareness. And having the self-awareness is
huge.
To me, the number one skill to in order to actually adapt. Because you have to know, how am I coming off to other people? And how do they think that I'm coming off to, to go those levels deep kind of things.
Yeah, I'll touch on that for 1 second, and then we'll lead into talking about all the different castmates for this season. But just look at last season. I mean, Xander clearly lacked some type of self-awareness. I would even go as far to say that Deshaun had some slight self-awareness issues himself as well. We can have a great debate about what led the jury's decisions to Erica, because one, we weren't shown enough, and I really think it comes down to a producing and an editing standpoint that we didn't get to see enough from Erica last season. But the fact of the matter is that one of the key reasons that Deshaun and Xander fell short was, some self-awareness issues. So no, that's a great point.
All right. Yeah, totally. All right. So let's hop into these cast members. Talk about what we like about them, what we don't like about them. We're going to be going through these in tribe order. So we're going to be starting with the Ika tribe. The first person I want to talk about is Roxroy Bailey. I think personally, coolest name on the cast by far.
Of course. Yeah, easy.
Roxroy, incredible. He's 44. Yeah. He's from Brooklyn. He currently lives in Vegas, and he is a stay-at-home dad. Toast, I'm going to throw this one to you. What are the things you like, maybe things you don't like about Roxroy? How do we feel?
I think that the things that I like about Roxroy as of right now start and end with his name, his first name, specifically, Roxroy. Honestly, so from the information that we have, I know that we've been talking about those entertainment videos, like the pregame Survivor interviews, and sort of the questions that they get asked and how they answer it. And I think it's interesting to note that Roxroy, honestly, he cannot finish a sentence. I mean, he is rambling in every single thing, and it's like, I want him to get a full thought out and like have it stick. And every time I think he's done talking in this interview, he keeps going further. And I'm like, I want to hear what you think about it, obviously, but also we got to land this plane, And I feel like on the island, that actually might come into play, because if you can't read that other people are done listening to what you have to say and it's their turn, that might come into play.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that, because I feel like as I was watching the videos with him and his interviews with like the producers, it felt like he kept giving answers that were non-answers, but not in like I'm a very smart politician way, but almost just like he just wouldn't say anything of
it was
substance,
like expositional,
really.
He's just saying random things that sort of semi-relate, but it's like, you got to stick to the point, man. I mean, if I'm this cast and I were able to see that video, which obviously I wasn't able to, but if I were able to see that, I would love to sit next to a Roxroy when I'm pleading my case.
You're beating up on this guy a little bit too much.
I listen.
Yeah, first one out of the gate, Toast.
I know. Well, this is a prelude to exactly how I'm going to think about everybody, right?
Well, here's my thing. We're going to read a lot into this pregame press, and I actually think that there's going to be a handful of different takeaways to take from each individual. But in terms of what you're saying about Roxroy, I actually did agree with you. He probably took the longest on almost all of his answers.
I know. I wish we could like time all of them.
100%. But to stark contrast, there was a few that we'll get on to later that basically gave not much at all. So, is that truly a testament to how he's going to act in a tribal setting? I don't know. He seemed like a nice guy. He seemed to be of decent physical stature that, the tribe might have to, I'm looking at the rest of the tribe, outside of Drea, who we'll speak about in a little bit on Ika, he might be leaned on a lot physically in some of the challenges. So, he could be an asset, but we're going to see where he lands.
Yeah, I mean, to me, my number one positive for Roxroy is that he's a stay-at-home dad. He can handle kids, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes handling personalities on the island can be a little bit like handling kids. But other than that, I'm pretty neutral on Roxroy. Like, I'm not like, oh, he's gonna do great, and I'm not like, oh, he's gonna do horrible. I think it kind of remains to be seen for him.
I would love to be proven wrong. You know what I mean? Like, Roxroy, show me what you got.
He comes out.
I mean, we're probably gonna bet 200 on nailing any of these predictions that we do in this little pregame podcast here. So, I'm not thinking that we're going to nail everything, but from what the fact that we all had kind of the same takeaway, I was curious.
I think it's a good sign. That or we talk to each other too much. But let's move on. Let's move on to Tori Meehan, 25 from Tulsa. She's a therapist. This is somebody I actually really want to talk to, because me personally, I'm very negative on Tori.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I want to get into it. I want to tell you guys why I'm negative, because I thought you guys might be positive.
Well, I'm not. I'm before I'll interrupt you, I'm gonna guess in my head why it is that you feel the way you do, and I'm 50-50. I think if we see the room.
I'm happy that we're having this.
All right, go ahead. I interrupted. Go ahead.
I actually. Yeah, no. I love it, and I know that we're gonna agree and we're gonna disagree. I think that she's definitely one of the most polarizing players that I can think of right now. A lot of the internet is torn about what they think about her. So I mean, I'm interested to hear what you guys. I mean, we haven't discussed this obviously, right? So I'm interested to hear your exact takes, because I think I might align with some of you on them.
Yeah. So the reason I'm so negative on Tori. And obviously, like every cast member here, we're clutching at straws. We have very little info on them and very little interviews. But the reason I'm so negative specifically is because of all of her talk about being a therapist. Mm-hmm. And I know that on paper that looks good, and it's like, oh, she knows psychology and she knows how to talk to people. But I really truly feel that so one of her answers was, I'm really good at getting people to trust me. People come into my office all day, every day, and tell me their deepest, darkest secrets. But there is a very important difference between talking to strangers and getting them to like you and trust you versus somebody who's coming into your office who is paying to be like, I am coming here to unload on you.
Absolutely.
Like that is a very different skill. And anecdotally, personally, in my own life, I have found that people who are trying to become therapists aren't as good like at these psychology, social things in real life as they think they are because of that training. I think she's a little overconfident in her abilities. And then specifically too, another one of her answers, the quote was, I'm a controller. Like she really likes to have control of scenarios, which I think kind of relates back to that being a therapist and wanting that, control and understanding. And I don't know that that's going to work out that well for her, specifically because she comes off as like that, like, oh, I'm a quirky girl, when really she might just be a little bit annoying.
I'm going to say this.
And I feel like I'm really going in on her, but that's why
that's fine.
I think you bring up valid points. Specifically, the game of Survivor, there is not one point in any game in any season that anybody's had 100% of control of anything. And specifically, and this is something that I do want to talk about as we meander through all these different castmates, is that I really am curious to see how this season relates casting to last season. They did a very great job with casting last season. But at the same time, what they did a really poor job was some of the producing and some of the ridiculous, different twists and turns that they took all season long. And that's going to lead to a lot of uncontrollable factors for all of these different individuals to handle. So Tori, for example, to everything you're saying, Sim, yeah, she might have some issue with some of the things that, come her way in this game.
Yeah. Simi, to your point about the therapy, I think an interesting thing to bring up is that when you're a therapist, when you're any sort of professional that has those relationships with their patients like that, you have the advantage in the sense that the frame is already set for you, right? So there's you, and then you being Tori, and then there's the patient who's lying on the couch. Well, there are no couches in Survivor, right? Unless you win some sort of nice.
Or you have Wendell.
There are no
or you
couches.
have Wendell.
Or you have Wendell, yeah, but I didn't see him on the list. Maybe I didn't scroll too far, but the frame is already set for you, right? So you have that advantage going in. You don't have any advantage on the island. You don't. You are speaking to people
seat of
as
power.
people. There's no frame of reference. There's no therapist, therapy, whatever you want to say. But to that point, I mean, we have seen in the past that therapists have been successful in Survivor, most notably Denise, right? Won her season. But I think where Denise differs from Tori is mostly in age and wisdom. I think that Denise came across as a very good listener, a wise, sage, potentially elder that people could talk to. I mean, she wasn't that old when she won. I'm just saying she had that life, she had that life experience that could have been leaned on. And I think that people are more likely to talk and confide in someone like that. And if Roxroy, for example, starts getting psychoanalyzed by Tori, I don't think he's going to like it very much. I think he'll be very keen on that and understand. I mean, and this is Roxroy. You know my thoughts on Roxroy, but you know what I'm saying. So
yeah, I mean, she's a 25-year-old girl. Nobody wants to get talked down to by a 25-year-old girl.
So this is my hot take on her, though. I know we're spending a lot of time on Tori, but this is my hot take. I think that Tori is most likely to be the Angelina of this season. That's my hot take. I think that she's going to have one or two pieces that are missing, and she's going to go far in the game. And I think that the pieces that are missing are going to correlate very strongly with Angelina. Kale, you know that I'm biased towards Angelina's game. I think she's great TV. The good news for us as viewers, I think, is that I think that the only way that we lose in this scenario is if she gets booted early. I think that if she goes far and she's great, she's great. If she goes far and she has those same sort of quirks, she's going to be great TV.
Well, I think that's my worry about her, getting booted early or staying far is it seems like it's something we haven't talked about with her is that she used to do pageants. I guess they're called competitions now?
Competitions, yeah.
Competition. Every sport and thing is a competition. I don't know,
Yeah.
But it seems to me, it's coming off in these videos that she likes to perform. She likes to be seen. And that worries me as well. Like, is she going to have the wherewithal or the kind of, perspective to step back and let somebody else have the spotlight so that she doesn't, get a target on her back. I know that makes me a little bit worried too, that, that could be an early boot because she just wants to, make big moves early and get that, attention.
Yeah. I think no matter what, we want to see more of Tori.
Oh, absolutely.
Regardless.
Absolutely.
She's going to be good TV. I mean,
yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, let's move on to our next ECA member. We got Romeo Escobar here. Mm-hmm. Now,
I think it's a good time to mention, right?
Yeah. Well, it's incredible that the producers put Romeo and Tori together. Great move by them because Romeo is a pageant coach and Tori used to be in pageants. So they put them together so that they have a conversation about that stuff. Kale, let's throw it to you. What do you think about Romeo, and what are your thoughts there?
I hate to come out of the gates like this on Romeo, but let's take it to the pregame press. He just seemed nervous. He said it himself. He was scared to be out on the island. It was looming large on the events that were about to transpire in his future. So the nervousness was really, really scaring me because you can come out of the gate slow in Survivor, you can't come out of the gate slow in terms of making the right relationships to put yourself in the correct spot later on in the game. So if he's just nervous, taking it day by day, kind of feeling it all out, he just might get lost in the weeds. I think it's pretty simple in terms of how I view him in that sense. That nervousness came through in the pregame press. And I just think he's going to get lost in the weeds a little bit. I guess from the first three people we've talked about, Roxroy, Tori, and Romeo, I haven't had any, glowing recommendations just yet. But three individuals that I think will be great TV and will be very curious to see how they interact with, everybody else. But for Romeo's sake, too nervous for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that the one note I have for Romeo as I was looking through these videos and reading the press and stuff is the one note I have is doesn't want people to know he's scared to be there. Doesn't seem like he'll handle living on a beach that well. It's like exactly like you said, like you can have a strategy where you come out and you're quiet and you don't really make too many waves until, post merge and things like that and start making moves. And we like to look at this game, I think, as a group a lot more at the social aspects and the politicking aspects and the optimization aspects. Mm-hmm. Something that we don't talk about a lot, I think, as a group is living on a beach and being on an island. And it doesn't seem like Romeo has braced himself for that, proverbial impact. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm worried about him getting to the beach and day 5 being like, I'm miserable, I'm cold, I'm hungry. And that affecting his game.
Well, I'll just say sorry.
I mean,
sorry,
points.
Toast, but I can be completely wrong here because if you want to take it back to David Wright's first season on Millennials versus Gen X, he came out of the gates. Yeah, he came out of the gates scared shitless of the game and scared shitless of the beach. Yet he proved to be a very, very good player towards the end of the game, and he ended up being one of the biggest threats come finale time.
I mean, if you take it even farther back, Kale, I mean, like the first person to have that sort of narrative arc was Suri, right? Suri came onto the beach and she was afraid of leaves. I mean, and now she's played 4 times and she's one of the most notable Survivor players. So, I mean, there is some sort of narrative arc that is sort of like a layup for producers if Romeo turns out to be, the person that, we don't necessarily think he will be. But I just want to say at one point to the sheepishness and the scaredness. I think that he's feeling obviously pregame jitters, and that's what happens when you're about to do something so monumental. But I think that the way that he's framing it is indicative of his perception, right? If he were wording it like I'm excited, right? Because the feelings of excitement and being scared are really kind of similar, like biologically, right? You're feeling adrenaline, but the way that he's wording it to us is scared, not excited, not ready to go. So I think that we're right in the sense that we're looking into something, and I think there might be something there.
Yeah, totally. And look, I think it goes without saying, I think we'd all be happy to be proven wrong about any, negative or not overly positive, reactions we have to any of these people. But
except for Tori, I think I have Tori nailed.
You got her down to a T.
Yeah,
you got the absolute soul read on Tori.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Swati here. She's 19, very young, literally still a teenager, from Palo Alto, California. She currently still lives there. She's going to be going to Harvard soon, and she was in the military. Toast, what are your thoughts on Swati here?
I feel like I should keep it short and sweet here. I do not think that her prospects bode well. I think that she is victim to the same thing that's going on just as far as production is concerned. I mean, we have Jeff Probst talking to the camera telling, 15, 16-year-olds to apply so that they can get on. But the problem is that we don't really see that conversion. We don't see these younger players being taken seriously. I think that if you look at someone, I mean, we can keep going back to my best buddy, Roxroy. Is Roxroy really going to give $1 million to a 19-year-old? I just don't see it. I don't think that there's any gameplay that can actually.
You don't have the life experience either. Fact. You don't really have the valuable life experience. You don't have it.
But even if they did, even if they got there and they had a great story, is Roxroy writing Swati on a piece of parchment for $1 million? I don't think so.
Yeah, and is he writing it to a 19-year-old who's going to Harvard next year? Her prospects look good.
She did say,
she said she's not going to say that. So
I know, but you get the vibe.
Yeah.
Well, also, I wanted to talk about that too. She said she's not going to tell people that she's going to Harvard, but she's saying Berkeley instead. Like that's also a phenomenal.
I mean,
school.
She's from California, so
so it's like I guess it's just a school she thinks
exactly.
about, but say something like, "I'm going to my local community." Don't say anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What is it that you're actually trying to convey by saying that? Because it really is actually saying the exact same thing. It's saying, I'm someone who's capable. I'm someone that's driven. I've been successful in, up until this point in my life. Either one, Harvard or Berkeley. I get that Harvard has some sort of connotation to it, but it seems like she's still trying to express that she's capable. And that's something that she may be viewing as an advantage for herself relative to other people that other people may view as actually something that is threatening.
And you know what? For all we said about, Tori earlier, one thing I did really like that Tori said earlier that I think Swati could learn from is she was like, I'm not going to tell people I'm a therapist. I'm going to tell people I'm a caregiver. And she really thought about what kind of image she was trying to give with care.
It was intentional.
Exactly.
Intention.
And I don't know that exactly what you said, Toast, is I don't know that Swati's being intentional here with her choice. And I think that's a really important part is if you're going to lie, the lie that you do say, you need to be very aware of what that's actually saying to other people.
Exactly.
Because that makes a big difference.
No, I just we've said it multiple times, but the age thing is just massive for me. I mean, the youngest winner of Survivor ever was Fabio from Nicaragua. Yeah, and that was probably the most poorly casted, season of Survivor ever. So for me, it's a no-go for Swati, and I guess we can parlay this into a conversation about Zach, who's only 22.
Yeah, I was going to say, another young contestant here on the same tribe. We got Zach Wurtenberger, 22, Weston, Florida, is currently a student. I don't know, Kale, what are your thoughts on Zach here?
I haven't, none of the first four people that we spoke about really has stood out to me in terms of someone that I'm really, really excited to see how their prospects go towards the end. But again, like we said, I could be wrong on any of them. Zach is interesting to me. Zach really started to talk about his speech and debate days, and that hits home for me, and I think it hits home for Toasty too.
Just you? Okay.
So it hits home for us, the speech and debate, because we know the powers that speech and debate wields. But again, he's young. He's a student. And does he truly, have the life experience with dealing with certain people in certain scenarios that's going to put him in a good spot to deal with people of all different types of ages? Because in speech and debate, you're dealing with some people and students that are your age and that you deal with on a daily basis in school. So, you know your way around, working through other students. But this is a whole different ballgame in the game of Survivor. So for Zach's sake, he's got, a couple more years on Swati, but kind of has the same dilemma, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. I think that the difference between 19 and 22 is actually
I agree. No,
pretty
I
big,
agree.
So I don't know if I don't want to lump them together. I do think that, obviously there's people with more life experience than Zach, but I do think that he has his head in the game. He already knows that he's a jury threat. When he gets to the end, he's going to speak his case better than everyone. I like that he's already thinking that far ahead, but again, you have to get there, right? So that's what I'm most concerned about with him. I think if he gets there and he has something, a good resume, he'll be able to explain that in a way that's actually pretty persuasive, in my opinion. But he has to get there, right? So I think he's interesting, someone to keep an eye on. I agree with you, Kale.
Yeah, I think I also do like that speech and debate because obviously he can speak. I think one thing that worries me is I don't know that I'm getting. I don't know that he's got the outgoing enough personality to support that speech and debate skill. Like you can't just have the argumentativeness or the ability in arguments without also having the ability to make people like you as well. Yeah. One thing that did worry me about him is he was telling that it was the embarrassing story question from the videos, and it for some reason as I was watching it, it felt like he was just making up the story to me. And that's not to say that he was actually lying about the story.
No, but it's your perception.
If you're telling a genuine story and it seems like you're lying, like it worries me that he doesn't have that level of genuineness that you want in somebody, and that makes me a little worried.
Yeah, it's fair.
And then finally on the Ika tribe, we have Drea Wheeler. Drea here's 35 from San Antonio. She's a fitness consultant. I believe she owns her own business, and according to her in the interview, is fairly successful. So that's interesting. What do you guys think of Drea here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Drea is interesting. I think that she has some potential. I mean, she reminds me kind of like, she says that she idolizes Kelly Wentworth. She kind of comes across like a Sydney from Ko Wrong, someone who's strong, both physically and mentally. Just looking at some of the things that she's listed, like pet peeves is dishonest people. Well, I mean, then Drea, you're in the wrong place. I mean, you're
going to get lied to a lot here.
For the wrong thing. I mean, that's the game. So it's like, how to what extent is that actually going to play out? I mean, she's going to have to deal with some egos. I think that she's going to be a little bit more reserved than I think we may think, initially. And I think that she's going to have to deal with those egos that she has surrounding her. But I mean, she's interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think Drea's my top out of.
I actually
100%
agree with you. I 100% agree with you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
wow.
Drea is very interesting to me. The fact when we
Kale, did you get those same vibes? Like, like a Sydney kind of like a, bodybuilder, like fitness trainer?
To be honest with you, my comparison was actually Stephanie LaGrossa. For the last time we saw her was Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I got from Drea. I saw the beginning couple videos of some of her pregame press and was highly excited. Then I ratcheted it back a little bit. I'm going to be honest, because I saw what seemed to be her taking that persona that she doesn't take a lot of shit, so she can get pissed off, from being told.
It's how she's gonna play
absolutely. But here's the thing. I think we got a lot of wild cards on this Ika tribe. Drea is someone that should be probably their biggest physical threat on this tribe. I would assume. So and that should definitely lend her some help when it comes to individual challenges if she makes it to the merge. So I'm very curious because I think for her it's going to come down to the relationships she makes and how interactions then translate through the shows happening. So yeah, she's very intriguing, and I agree with you, Sim. She's my number one threat on Ika.
Oh well, I'm glad you agree with me. And like I said, I am positive on Drea right now. One thing that I would be remiss if I didn't bring up with her though, because it came up with a lot of different people, and I think it comes up, year after year, especially as the seasons get later and later. Of something, one of my pet peeves is that when people, make the assertion that they're going to do well because they're the biggest Survivor fan.
Yeah, totally.
And that never inspires confidence to me. And I think a couple different people said that
Yeah,
in
we
there,
have a
like
lot of
why
this.
we're gonna win.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get it, you're a huge fan. We're all huge fans, but it's like that alone is not gonna take you to the end, especially if you talk about it with people like some people from past seasons, like
Yeah.
JD last season and things like that. But like, tell me why your life experience outside of watching the show is gonna make you win, because just watching the show is not going to be enough. You need to have those outside skills, those real world experiences to get you through to the end. And like
fair.
I said, I'm positive on Drea, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring that part up.
Now, she's also the first of a couple of Canadians that we have on this season. So we had our first Canadian winner last season, and I actually think that I'm very curious to see how all these Canadians. I don't know if it actually makes a difference or not, but we might start to have a run of Canadian winners because we have a few options.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Well, so that's the totality of kind of Ika tribe here. We've got Roxroy, Tori, Romeo, Swati, Zach, and Drea. Now that we've kind of talked about each of those, like, what are our overall vibes on the Ika tribe? I'm not feeling overly positive. Like we said, we were a little bit negative on most of the people here. I don't think they have a ton of,
Physical threats.
yeah, exactly. But what are you guys kind of thinking on this Ika tribe? Any obvious alliances maybe that you can pick out here? Anything like that?
I mean, like we touched on it a little bit. A conversation will be had, I think, between Tori and Romeo.
It's a matter if it's day 1, day 2, day 3. I mean, yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, it's there for the picking. I don't know if that necessarily will convert into an alliance.
I would actually go as far to say is that they
they
won't be aligned.
Okay, I mean that's fair. I mean I think it'll be either one or the other, right? But I think that they're gonna,
the totality of possibilities there.
Those are all the options. But I think that they're going to be good TV. I mean the biggest TV threat right now is Tori. There's no way you can look at Tori's resume and the way that she's sort of presenting herself to us as the fans, right? There's no way you can look at her and be like, I don't want to see what she has to say. I want to see what she has to say.
I agree with you. I think Tori's in the running for me right now of most exciting to watch. Like she's got some maybe it isn't a perfect analogy, but like some Shan possibilities of like doing exciting things. Not necessarily in the same way that Shan does, but in the same way that I was excited to watch Shan, I'm excited to see what Tori has in store for us.
Yeah, I was going to say one other thing regarding Tori that we didn't touch on is that she competed in Sequester. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but
what is that?
I am.
Say it again. You are, yeah. So she competed in Sequester. I'm not, too knowledgeable about it, but I know it's a Survivor analogous sort of strategy game, and I know she placed actually pretty well. She came in 6th of 20. So, I mean, she has some sort of, this isn't her first rodeo per se. It's obviously on a bigger scale. And
Sequester was also virtual, I'm pretty sure.
It's virtual, exactly. It's totally different, but it's totally different, but in the same sense, it's totally not different, right? Like there are some transferable skills that may come into play. So, I'm interested to see.
Well, I am curious too with Ika as a whole. I do think that they can pose a physical threat, because I don't actually overly think that any of these tribes are particularly going to dominate. I do think one of them in particular might have a better chance, but I don't think Ika's shit out of luck. I think they're going to do just fine. So and if they do, actually one of the curious points is are they going to send 2 tribes to tribal again? They probably will, right?
Yeah, they're going to tribal.
That in and of itself is going to lend it so that there's a 66% chance that they're going to lose. But I guess we start talking about that tribe that might be a little bit more physically and there with it.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see if anybody from Ika can eke out the win.
Ooh, and this is brutal
sorry.
because we don't even know if that's
No,
the
we
right
have no idea.
pronunciation, right?
Yeah, that is the
They
problem.
might have to ick out, right? We don't know.
No.
We don't know.
Yeah,
they might
that-
have to ike out.
No,
Yeah, they don't know.
That joke might not age well. All right, so next we have a Taku tribe. Also, Kale, did you make a talk about Taku joke a second ago as
I
well?
may have. I don't even know what I'm saying at that point.
All right, cool. All right, so we're gonna go through Taku tribe now. First person we got here on Taku tribe, a very exciting personality, I think. Jonathan Young, 29, owns a beach service company. I don't really know what a beach service
Laying
is.
chairs out and whatnot.
I don't know what that does.
Laying
The what?
Like, lounge chairs out.
I don't know. I'm not.
There's
I'm not
something
sure.
to do with
Umbrellas?
beaches.
Umbrellas?
you
He's
know?
on a beach. We know he's on a beach somewhere. What are your guys' thoughts about Jonathan Young and from what we've seen so far?
Low chance.
Wow.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So,
Really not
so I
liking him,
say
huh?
low chance because to me, I'm going to take it back to what was the original promo right after the conclusion of the season 41 finale. And they're promoting the shit out of this whole, he's got the pull-up record, the Guinness World Record pull-up record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah.
Also, I want to interrupt you there because me and Toast looked this up. The record is he has 100 pounds on his back and he did 15 pull-up or chin-ups
In
That's what it
60
was.
seconds.
in 60 seconds. So that's the actual record is 100
can't
pounds
do
on your
that.
back,
I mean,
60
I
seconds,
can't
15 chin-ups.
I don't know if I can
No,
do one.
obviously, of course not. But I think it goes into the thing that I'm most worried about with Jonathan Young is he going to be like he's so obviously the biggest physical threat in this.
Yeah, I don't
in
think
this
it's close.
game,
I don't
like-
think it's close
Yeah.
at all, to be honest.
That's such an early boot, especially if he's on a team that's like, hey, we want to get rid of physical threats early.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say, judging from history, right, recent history, we see that, this, as we'll go into, I'm sure, is one of the most physically domineering tribes that we have out there. And we saw Luvu last season sort of escape any sort of
Yep.
pre-merge tribal. And so who's the analogous player? It would be Danny. And if you see Danny went really far. And Danny had sort of a quiet, laid back.
Yeah, but you think this
sort of
guy
air
has
about
that?
him that I'm hoping that
He's
he
pretty
does.
laid back. I mean,
He
he's a
seems
beach
laid
service
back.
company owner, Kale.
He
Come
seems
on.
like he knows his role. He knows he's the Ozzy. He's the Joe. He knows who he's
I don't know.
playing into. He knows who he's playing into. But I mean, I hope that he learns from these people that he idolizes because if you look at Joe's history, Joe is able to get the tribe that he's on healthily to the merge, and then he says goodbye. I'll see you at Ponderosa. That's what Joe's done. So we need to see how Jonathan sort of plays this. If he's relaxed, if he gets a little bit farther, and he's on a winning tribe, I think he can actually go pretty far. Now, whether or not people will take him seriously, that's the next question.
I think the problem is is Taku going to be as crushing the competition as much as Luvu was? Luvu, I mean, was unbelievable.
At face
Yeah.
value, I
Yeah,
think
I
they
mean-
have the potential.
They do. Because think about it. Luvu had Erica, who did win some individual immunities, but at the point in the game, they were, mostly balance-based. They weren't like, gauntlet team, swimming, then puzzle, all of these different things. And they had Heather, too, who was, pretty notoriously poor at challenges to the point where we got a whole, uplifting song about it at one point, So I don't think that they have that on their tribe. I think they have strong women,
Oh, absolutely.
too. I think
we'll get to him.
I think that Luvu was stacked with the men, and I think Sydney could hold her own. But I think that we have some strong women on this tribe too, which is a
You want to know what's so
interesting
interesting
factor.
too? I think back to last season now, and how dominant Ricard was in these challenges post merge. That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
were they
crazy.
so
Oh, he was
poor
ripping.
pre-merge? I mean, Brad was a big guy. JD was thought to be at least maybe okay at challenges.
Yeah, it just goes to show
No.
they don't translate, right? They don't
No, they
translate
don't.
one to
They
one.
don't.
Well, I think another thing to take into account, I don't know how much this was actually happening last season, but like, I'm sure you guys have read like the Tommy from Barstool, like his strategy doc that he wrote.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like his big thing was like, especially early on, like don't do anything to like win challenges. Like don't like be the one who like, oh, he pulled it from behind and won the challenge for us. So, that could be part of that as well. Is like
threat management.
I think Ricard actually did have to do some
I look
of
at that so
because-
differently after seeing last season, and I guess it's different because they didn't have the tribe swap last season, which I loved. But what was it? More than a 50% chance that someone from Louisville was going to win, or what was the merge numbers? 6-5.
Yeah, I mean, it was 6-6.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you had a
6-6.
50% chance, and it was like only because.
Well, I mean, that's if you're throwing
No, I
random probability, not taking
I
into
understand that,
consideration
but if anything, and then you want to factor in relationships, you have all the relationships with the people that I'm talking in that 150% of the group.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I without a tribe swap, which I don't know if they're going to do this season. I really hope they don't because
I doubt it. I think it's going to map on pretty.
I think they will too. I think they came out of the COVID pause, and they had a plan in place to run these seasons to a certain script, which included a bunch of twists that were unnecessary. So we could get into that later. But
yeah, but the only feedback that they have is from the people who actually were victims to those twists, right? Like the only feedback that Jeff is going to hear about
during filming,
breaking the hourglass is from Danny, and like it's not like. So I hope that they had the wherewithal to realize that there were some things that need to be tweaked, some things that I would be personally fine with them just completely throwing away. But I mean, it would need to be realizing that the cast that actually performed in those, that they did not like it, and hopefully that will mean that the next cast won't like it either, and then let's tweak it.
Well, I think too, and I want to keep moving on these
of
cast
course,
members.
Yeah,
but
yeah. We're not talking about Jonathan right now, are we?
I know. But I do want to say too, like although Toast, the only real feedback that they're going to get on season 41 or season 41 cast members, but I think like we do have to have some trust in the producers that they can see for themselves. Even if nobody says something, oh, this thing didn't quite work out. At least I have some hope that they can notice some of those things on their own. Maybe not all of them, but hopefully some of them. All right, well, let's keep moving. We got Marianne O'cetch here. Marianne O'cetch is 24, another Canadian, and then occupation a seminary student. Does that mean she's training to join like the Catholic Church? Or am I being dumb?
it was something down a religious path, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. From my side, I think she seems like she's a smart person. I don't know how good her social skills are from what I've seen thus far. She's like she might be a little awkward, but that could work to your favor too. I mean, Christian was a super awkward guy from
but
Brains
he's the
Brawn
fucking best.
Beauty.
He was the fucking best.
Although he ended up being actually
he was
very
the
outgoing.
best. He was the best. I'm just rewatching the season. I'm rewatching the season now, and he is so funny. He is so funny.
Oh, he's unbelievable. And he's going to come up again for me when we talk about Daniel later, because I think they have a lot in common, I think. But I don't know. Kale, what are your thoughts on Marianne O'Cetch?
I'm truly mixed on her because she mentioned kind of mapping a game towards what Davey had done in David versus Goliath, and I love Davey. I thought Davey had a great game. I think Davey's got super great social skills. I think Davey should be a returning character at some point soon.
That's a lock.
Well, I know we've talked about this off air
so.
before, but yeah, I hope he's a lock on like a second chances.
I mean, he got a standing ovation at the reunion. I think that's enough.
I hope so. But anyways, Marianne, she seemed a little bit too nice, and so my problem with that is that does she follow like a Laurel type path from Ghost Island? I don't know. I've seen.
I mean, based on her descriptors.
No,
right?
go ahead.
Sorry to interject. I don't know. Based on her descriptors that she describes herself, she says energetic, empathetic, and chaotic, right? So energetic is a great personality trait to have, right? Like you like being around people that have energy. I'm hoping that she's able to draw people in to her, and that's I think that that's possible. But the one thing that sticks out to me there is chaotic, right? Chaotic. What does that mean? And I think that chaotic may translate to unpredictability, right? If you're unpredictable, am I saying that right? Unpredictable?
Yeah.
If you're unpredictable, I think Spencer Bledsoe said it in Kagayan, that could pose as great of a challenge to someone as disloyalty. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, of course. Unpredictability equals disloyalty in some sense, right? Like not being able to understand what that person's motivations are and what their next move is could be equally dangerous to you as someone who's overtly saying, I want you out, right?
Well, Toast, I mean, let's look at Brad from last season.
Chaotic.
When he first got in there, we were like, oh, he is a straightforward, normal guy. He's going to get pulled all the way to the end because he'll tell you exactly. He told people he was going to vote for them.
Right away.
You know what I mean?
I'm like,
he's going to tell you
I
exactly
love
what it is. And then it turns out an episode later that he's out of his mind. He's crazy chaotic.
Yeah.
And he got dropped for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's enough for me personally.
He could have easily been in the top 3 if he had just kept being that straightforward guy of being like, hey, I'm voting for so-and-so. And then he actually does it every time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I totally agree with you. That chaotic makes me nervous. I also makes me nervous from like a meta perspective of people who describe themselves as chaotic.
Correct.
I think it's the same thing with Tori earlier. Sorry to keep harping on Tori. Of like the quirky girl. Like I'm quirky. It's the same thing with like, oh, I'm chaotic. It's
Correct.
like people who describe themselves that way. It's not even the act of being chaotic or being quirky. It's people who describe themselves that way.
I love it.
Are a little bit annoying, I think, in general.
I think that that's a great point because we're not really looking at their descriptors. We're not looking at them in person. We're looking at them looking at their reflection, right?
We didn't pull their top 10 friends. How would you describe Marianne?
Correct.
It's Marianne describing Marianne.
Yeah, which is interesting. It's a great point, honestly.
I'm excited to see her gameplay. That's all I got to say. I'm highly excited to see her gameplay.
Same. Agreed.
Yeah, much like we think that she will be, she's pretty unpredictable to us right now. We don't really have.
Who knows?
We don't really have too much.
All right. So next we're gonna hop on to Omar Zaheer. Omar's 31, another Canadian. So we've got two Canadians on
Marianne,
this team
which
now?
I guess we'll talk about.
Yeah.
The fact that they might bond over that.
Yeah,
for sure.
And Omar's a big one of his big hobbies is Settlers of Catan, which I know we all love.
Yeah, that's a plus
an
one,
absolute
right?
plus one.
I guess so, but I think my negative one for Omar to kind of even it out is he's another one of those I'm the biggest fan out there and that's why I'm going to do well kind of thing, which I don't love.
So for all the listeners, we're back at 0.
Yeah, we are back to neutral on Omar. Kale, what do you think?
He came across as a goofy character. I don't know how much that's going to translate into scheming and concocting some great gameplay and great moves with his other castmates. I think he'll lend well to bonding with Marianne. But will his goofiness not fly with a guy like Jonathan? I don't know. I truly don't. That's a good
point.
I think this tribe has a mix of people that is so intriguing. We'll talk about the next 3 in a second, but for Omar's sake, the goofiness usually doesn't lend towards strong gameplay, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. It's fair to say. I think that to some of our earlier points, in my limited experience, I think that a Canadian can spot another Canadian a mile away, and I think that I think that it's only going to be. That potency is only going to be more concentrated, given that there's 2 on a tribe of 6. I mean, they're going to be able to suss that out pretty quickly, and I think that they're going to connect on that. Talk about Omar and Marianne, but I also think that his occupation being an exotic vet, exotic animal.
Oh,
vet,
I didn't realize it was exotic animals. Like, what are we talking here? Did he say?
So it's like if you're interested in healthcare, right, and then you want to specialize as a veterinarian, right? You're interested in animals, you're caring, you're compassionate, but then also now there's this extra specialty involved where you're like,
we talking tigers? What the fuck
right?
are we talking about? We talking tigers?
It could be tigers, it could be a monitor lizard, it could be anything. It's snakes, but I know, and it sounds crazy, right? Because those are not just totally different, right? I mean, there's different, doctors for the eyes and the foot, but the same doctor's handling a snake and a tiger. I don't know, but either way, I think it says a lot about him in the sense that he he sort of wants to stand out, because I think that that's a pretty unique career trajectory. I think that it says that he's caring, he's compassionate, but it also says that he's daring, adventurous, he's bold. And I might be reading into that a little bit too much, but at the same time, I don't really think that there's too many boring exotic animal veterinarians. I don't know. To be honest, I've never met a single one at all, but it just comes across as something that's interesting. It comes across as something that would be good conversation. And a lot of his analogies when he talks about how he'll play as a player have been about animals, which I think is interesting because he's playing into that trope, which is smart as both somebody who wants to be able to connect with the audience and also smart as somebody who will be able to weave together a story about how his occupation, how his background has allowed him to succeed in the game, right? We like to see that. Like, I mean, as an example, I'm kind of rambling, so cut me off whenever you guys feel fit. But Erica said, you know, in her final jury speech, she said, people think that I'm the intern, but really I'm running the meeting, right? And that stuck out to me as the viewer, but I can guarantee that it stuck out to the jury, right? How their occupation, right? How Erica's occupation and how their, you know, past experiences have led them to be a good Survivor player and how they put that to use in the game. So I'm hoping that he's able to weave together a story like that.
So it sounds like you're pretty positive.
I am pretty positive if it hasn't been
Dissected
sort of
way, yeah.
Clear
explicitly said.
All right.
I think he's interesting. I'm hoping
Well, I talk about
goofiness
in like a bad light before, but I guess one of the biggest goofiest players that there ever was Tyson Postel. So, you know, who knows?
Yeah. Tony's kind of goofy too. I mean, he can goof off.
Yeah, no, I love Tony.
I'm not by no means. I hope no one's conflating these things. I do not think that Omar is going to be like Tony. I'm just saying goofiness has a role to play sometimes, especially if you're paired on a tribe with some other goofy people, like we think Marianne may be.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, next we're going to talk about Lindsay here, who I think has the most confusing last name, Dolashewicz.
I didn't even try to pronounce it or type it out because I had no chance.
Yeah. She's 31. She's from New Jersey, a dietitian. I think one of the big standouts for me for Lindsay was her embarrassing moment story. She's talking about how, you know, she was at an ugly sweater party and she was giving everybody, you know, stories for their ugly sweater and what kind of life they would lead with their ugly sweater. And then she got to a guy and everyone went silent when she told his ugly sweater story. And it turns out she was just describing his life and was basically dunking on him. That personally made me very worried of like, are you just socially clueless on this stuff? And then she says in the story, she leaves the room with her friend. She goes back in and she starts doing the ugly sweater stories again to try to like get the distraction off of the guy, which wrong move, ignore it, like just move on. And then does the same thing to another guy.
Yeah.
Like to me, it's like, okay, you're just telling us that you don't have phenomenal social skills. Now, granted, that was back when she was in college. She's 31 now, so maybe she's grown past that. But
of course, yeah.
You know, I don't know how many new social skills.
What about that, Simi? Learning from mistakes, right? Like,
sure, it doesn't give me high hopes for her social abilities.
Adaptability, right? We talk about it.
She does seem fairly likable though from her interviews, so I'll say that. I think overall, I know I'm pretty negative on that ugly sweater story, but I think overall I'm pretty neutral on Lindsay because she does seem likable, but in kind of a, you know, goofy, I'm bad at social interactions way.
Are we talking goofy? We got some goofy, some goofy goofers on this tribe.
I think she's gonna be tough. You know, tough as nails, as Boston Rob would like to say.
Tough as nails.
I think that I'm 50-50 on Lindsay. I think she's in the ballpark of where I stand on Drea overall. To be honest,
that's fair. I think that's pretty fair.
I think that if she makes the right relationships on this tribe, which, you know, in particular, I think that they're going to be the strongest tribe through the pre-merge. So they should have some numbers if that goes that way. Who knows?
I agree.
If she makes the right relationships on this tribe, you know, there's no reason why she can't have a Michelle Fitzgerald type, you know, gameplay here, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And I think she really could be, you know, a physical asset as well to the team.
Absolutely.
She seems like she could do really good in challenges.
I feel like we're getting more and more positive. I want to bring it down somehow.
This is how I felt. This is how I felt, honestly, as I went through. I mean, we're going to end on a high note with the final tribe. I'll kind of forecast it for myself. I think some heavy hitters heavy hitters are coming down the pipeline.
I can't wait, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we're going to talk about Jackson Fox. He's 48 from Pasadena, Texas. Healthcare worker. Kale, give me your thoughts on Jackson Fox here.
Off air, raring to go on this podcast. I've been saying to myself, I'm ready to go to war here because me and Toast, I think have a differing opinion on Mr. Jackson here. To me, I think he's got all the traits, at least how he's coming across in his pregame press, to be cunning when he needs to be, to maybe make some strong moves. I like his position on his tribe in comparison to his tribe mates. There's a lot that I like about Jackson moving forward here, and I'm going to be honest, Toast, I think I know where you're going with a couple of things that he said in his pregame press on where you might not like where he stands. So go ahead, let it rip.
Well, before Toast gets into the negative, I also want to say I am also very positive on Jackson Fox, especially from a social perspective. He seems like he's very, outgoing, and like I said earlier, I feels like he's very self-aware, and that he's got some really good social skills that I'm personally really excited about. So I want to add that in before we get over to Toast's side.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta have a say, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess we kind of alluded to it, but I don't know. There's something that sort of stands out to me. One, I mean, we talked about sort of like an age range that we're looking for. Jackson does not fall into that age range. That's by no means disqualifying, but on a cast of potentially younger people and on a tribe of potentially younger people, that immediately makes Jackson an outlier, right? So just looking at that for one, but then also, as Kale was saying about his pregame press, he made the comment that he wants to play with a certain sense of integrity and honor, and that always raises a red flag for me, because I think that it's an old school type of mentality that just does not pay off. It really doesn't pay off, and it hasn't paid off. I understand.
I just so disagree with that sentiment.
Okay,
literally, you have a tribe and jury that has to come to an agreement that you played a great game in their eyes, and a piece of that would be them believing that you are honorable in their eyes. Yes or no?
Yeah, to some extent. But when you say the words honor, I mean, I immediately think of people like, I mean, we talked about archetypes a little bit earlier on, where we're talking about mafioso. In this case, there's another archetype that's, the Captain America archetype, right? You have people like Colby who take Tina to the end, right? Instead of taking Keith when he would have had the clear win, but he did the honorable thing, and he lost $1 million. I mean, he did. And
this is where I have an issue.
That you have you have people like Wu who do something honorable and with integrity, and where do you see Wu? I mean, Wu is getting booted pre-merge and second chances and not a millionaire.
You just went to the extreme on players that have predicated themselves on literally honor being their number one.
Of course, yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying it's a red flag that when I hear that, I immediately think, this isn't the game for you. That's my own bias. I'm sure people agree and disagree, but I just don't like hearing that, because I think it doesn't give me any good indications, really, unfortunately.
To me, I completely disagree, because I think it's a trait that you need to have. Again, I'll go to this analogy right here. Russell and Tony, both balls to the wall, fighting like dogs to find idols anywhere that they could. Yes or no?
Yeah,
both of them.
Yeah. No one argues that.
Both of them were very smart and strategic in taking out who needed to be taken out at really specific times in the game to help them along the way. Yes or no?
Yeah, of course.
So both kind of went along the same path.
Yeah.
But the real big difference between the two of them in the end is that a jury picked Tony and believed Tony had some element that Russell didn't have twice, that Tony actually did have twice.
Yeah.
To me, that attribute is pretty simple.
For sure.
It's honor.
I actually disagree a little bit there, Kale, where I think to me the biggest difference between those two players is not necessarily honor, but likability, just general likability. Like,
I mean,
Tony
Russell
is
was
just a
an
more
ass.
likable. Exactly, Tony's a more likable guy than Russell is, and so they can do very similar things and come off differently.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that one is more honorable.
As a general theme, do you think the people that you like more are more honorable or less honorable?
Well, I mean, you brought up Tony as an example, but look, what I said is that the least or the lesser of the two people up for potentially winning Kage-yan, the one who had less honor won. I mean,
I understand, but but that's my point, is that we're taking this to an extreme. I think Jackson knows how much honorability, how much honesty that he needs to do in certain doses.
yeah.
I think he's going to wield his power in terms of his social skills that I really think came across really well
Yeah.
in the pregame press with the certain levels of honor. I think that's where we're disagreeing.
Yeah.
That you think he's just going to go out there as a martyr of honesty. I don't.
I agree. I don't mean to, say it like that's his, MO and he's going to take it to the death. He's going to fall on the sword. I'm just saying that it's a red flag for me. We have we're like, Simi said earlier, we're grasping at straws with a lot of these castaways. And I'm thinking to myself, I want to see good things. I'm looking for good indications and I'm looking for the lack of bad indications, and seeing something that's a red flag like that, I have to, bring it up, and it has to factor into my decision making as far as whether or not I think he's going to go far in the game.
I'll leave it at this. We watched the pregame press. We read a lot about all of these different castaways. Jackson in his pregame press had this feeling, at least to me, that it seems Sim, you're kind of taking the same stance. His demeanor came across.
I agree with this.
Where he wasn't trying to exert super confidence. Like, I'll tell you one thing. It's a theme of the next tribe that we talk about, is that uber confidence is one theme. And even if we dial it back to Tori, who we already spoke about, and it's also not the other end of the spectrum where Romeo was very nervous. And we could parlay this into the next person. I don't think Maria. It's Maria, I think, is her name. I think
so.
Right? Yeah. Maria didn't really show too much of an edge to her game. I don't know. There's something about Jackson where I get your honesty point, but I don't think he's going to take it to the extreme that you're saying.
Well, I'll say this just as a sort of a counterpoint to myself playing devil's advocate. I think he comes across as very intelligent. He comes across as articulate, and I'm hoping those are two qualities that he brings towards conversations when he hits the beach. And one of us is going to be right, one of us is going to be wrong, or maybe it's a 2-on-1. I don't really know exactly where we lie, but I mean, or we could all be wrong and he's just middle of the road, But I think that there's something that we'll see, we'll see.
Yeah.
I came ready to fight on somebody. I felt Ika did not really bring anything out in terms of how I was feeling about people. So I was ready to go to war here because I wanted to fight for somebody. I know, like I said, I think tribe by tribe here, we're getting into different categories of who might be late game players here. But Jackson for me was the first one that stood out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Well, I'm excited to see how that plays out and how Jackson plays when he gets out on the island. All right. Well, next we're going to talk about Mariah. Is that what we decided? Mariah Sharon?
I think it's Maria.
Maria?
Did she say? I'm not recalling from the press.
She definitely said it in one of the press things,
which doesn't necessarily bode well to how I think. Really are, but.
We'll see Ep 1 how she pronounces her name, but she's from Lansing, Michigan. She's a stay-at-home mom. She is giving me a lot of Tiffany vibes.
Oh, I totally disagree.
You think so? She seems like she's like a strong-willed, like she's a teacher, so she's dealing with kids all day. Like, I think if you want to dial it to last season, she's closer to Heather than she is to Tiffany. You think? I don't think she's going to be like a nut. We're not going to see her for 11 episodes.
I have some comps that I'll bring up in a little bit, but she just seemed to lack any edge. in terms of how she was approaching the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I think she mentioned that I think is, must be pointed out is that she said that she is already looking at the castaways around her, her castmates that are around the same age as her daughters. Or her son and her son. Yeah, but she made a specific point to say that the women around her son's age are the people that she is going to be looking out for, like a mother, like a mother bear, And she actually went as far as to say that this actually is a detriment to her game. But it's nice to see that she has the wherewithal to know that she shouldn't be worrying about other people more than herself immediately. But
doesn't bode well.
That she's going to carry through.
Do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of side information. If I were out there, personally, I would 100% make it my main effort to have Maria as my number one ally. I'm just letting everyone know that now. I would work with this castaway till the end. I think that if I hear somebody saying, "Oh, I have a son your age, I have a daughter your age," that's immediately an indication to me.
Well, you're trying to embody the Malcolm Denise relationship.
The Malcolm Denise, the Don Cochran, the Taj JT. I mean, it's something that we've seen over and over again, and it works. It just works.
Well, also, let's be clear. She's going to be a great person to bring to the end. I mean, she literally said in the interview of how are you going to win this game, she literally said, "I don't know."
Yeah, there's a certain sense of refreshing honesty to that, though, right? I mean, anyone who says, "I'm going to do this, this, and that," they're in for a rude awakening because, we keep harping on adaptability, right? I don't know has a little bit of an air of humility, and I understand that. But
I agree with that.
But also, you're right. You probably want to have some game plan. Yeah,
that's my problem. Is she didn't phrase it like, I'm gonna go in there with a blank slate so that I can really figure out how I should play it. Yeah. She literally just couldn't think of something. To say how she was gonna win. She wouldn't say I'm gonna win because of my adaptability. She said, I don't know how I'm gonna win.
I don't know how. Yeah.
And that makes me worried.
Yeah, so I mean, I think maybe she's a deep threat, but not necessarily for the same reasons that we think other players are a deep threat. I think that, more and more people in Survivor are looking at potential GOATs as targets because they're actually taking up spots at the end, right? So I would think that if this tribe that we think is going to be physically dominant gets to the merge, relatively healthy, I think that there's a chance that she goes far, and I think that she may be getting, picked off a little bit right before the finale, or maybe go the distance, and we'll see, But that's, my early prediction.
Yeah, I honestly never really thought about it like that with a GOAT where if you're a good player and you're worried about you not being the one to pick that final three to go, you want no GOATs at that point.
Correct.
You want all great players, so it's a hard decision, and maybe they make a mistake and pick you.
We talked about this a little bit actually when we, not this specifically, but Suri in Panama, right? Exile Island. This is the infamous 3-2-1 vote, right? So Suri orchestrates this phenomenal maneuver where she's able to get the person that she wants voted out by having a plurality rather than a majority. She gets 3 votes cast for Courtney, and in doing so, she eliminates one person who the majority of the tribe intended on taking to the end. And in doing so, she's opening up a potential seat, Suri understands that she can't take Courtney to the end. And if she can't take Courtney to the end, then nobody can take Courtney to the end because she needs to have 2 available seats, one of which she wants to occupy. So I think that that's sort of like a higher level thought process with it, definitely. But I think that people are getting targeted more and more. Why is Heather in the fire making challenge? I mean, either we're not being shown something.
That was Xander's choice.
I know.
That was clearly ridiculed
it was a mistake.
When that happened.
Clearly, it was a mistake. But I think that there was probably some editing and production that we could have seen to make that a little bit more clear. I know that it was his mistake, but I think that GOATs are getting targeted a little bit more. I mean, Tony was like, I do not want to bring Michelle to the end. Tony said, I do not want to bring Michelle to the end. This is not a season that you want anyone like that involved.
I don't think you could say anybody was a GOAT on that season.
No, nobody was.
Because
nobody was. But as far as gameplay is concerned, people were viewing Michelle as not being on the right side of the vote for the majority of the votes, which is fair, and I'm sure Michelle would say the same thing about herself. She had really great connections with the people on the edge, and that was why she was a risk to Tony, or a threat to Tony. If Tony had it his way, he would not have been sitting at the end with Michelle, who, by the way, got 0 votes at the end, right? But if it was up to him, he did not want Michelle there. And, maybe I'm conflating a couple of different things, and obviously there's nuance to each and every scenario, but just something to look out for. I think that if somebody's occupying a spot that you can have, even if they're a GOAT, if you're not the one bringing the GOAT to the end, then they're taking up your spot.
It sounds.
I'll leave it. I'll leave
ahead.
it at this. I'll leave it with this with Maria. I think she lacked edge. Like I said, I think her best case scenario was a Carolyn Rivera from season 30. That seemed to be maybe some type of formidable threat to Mike. There really was none. That's her best case scenario, which ended up being viewed as somewhat of a GOAT at the end. But I think her worst case scenario was literally the season prior to that, in San Juan del Sur being a Missy type character. So to me, I just don't have the greatest of prospects for Maria.
Well, it seems like it's safe to say none of us think Mariah's winning this. She's not going to be our pick for a winner here.
I wish we knew how to pronounce this name.
We're going to find out soon.
We'll get there.
I apologize
in advance, right?
ahead of time.
Yeah.
I don't think it's any of our faults. All right, well, that's the totality of the Taku tribe. We got Jonathan Young, Marianne O'Cetch, Omar Zaheer, Lindsay Dolis-Shawich, Jackson Fox, and Mariah Sharon.
Both the first and the last.
I know, it's just an absolute butcher job. So what do we think of this tribe as a whole? We all kind of said that they could be a physical powerhouse here. It sounds like compared to the other two.
Yeah.
What are our overall thoughts on the tribe?
I'm going off the similarities of how I really do think the format of this season will lie in congruence with season 41.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't do a tribe swap, I do think that this tribe in particular is going to be exerting some physical dominance over the other two tribes.
Sorry, keep going.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, in this case, I think that Jonathan really is on an island of his own. I mean, nobody else on the cast looks like Jonathan, and I know that might be, threatening, but it kind of reminds me of Survivor China, right? Like, there's 2 different tribes, and one tribe has James, and this is James in his peak. He's physically fit. I mean, he looks like no other survivor had looked before, and the other tribe had nothing, paralleling that, and Fei Long really, stole the game away, obviously, but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they had somebody who just stood out completely, someone who stood out from the rest. Jonathan stands out from the rest.
Well, I agree, but I do, I'm curious to see, how strong of a player in terms of being a physical threat Drea is. And the next tribe, the next tribe, I don't really have anybody. So Drea is my one counterpoint to you there in terms of how physically dominant Jonathan is.
Yeah.
And again, not all these challenges come down to endurance, strength, whatnot. It can come down to a puzzle or two.
Yeah. But how many pull-ups can Drea do with 100 pounds on her back? I mean, that's the real question.
Well, I think though too. I think it's not just Jonathan on this team. It's Jonathan plus Lindsay plus Jackson seem like they could be, a good pairing compared to the other two. The other teams have got.
Well, I also have high prospects
but
for Omar. I think Omar will be a big help. I do think Marianne's going to be. I like the tribe overall, and if we compare it to Louvu, like Toast did previously, I actually think they're a little bit stronger. So as we roll through, and I'll kind of foreshadow my thought process later on here. I do think there's a high likelihood the winner might come from this tribe.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Interesting. Well, let's move on then to Vati Tribe. This is our third and final tribe here. We're going to start with Chanel Howell. She's 29, from Hamden, Connecticut. She currently lives in New York. Well, I guess we'll start with you, Kale. What are your thoughts on Chanel here? You seem excited about that in New York.
Anybody with the New York edge going into Survivor should at least get. You talked about +1s, -1s before. I'm going to give her +3 for being from New York.
Wow,
Wow.
+3.
That's
Wow.
a little bit of a
I'm
hometown
gonna have to
bias
work
here,
hard
but
to bring that back to neutral.
I got a few.
so, but
Tess. I got a few.
let me just preface before we take a deep dive into this entire tribe as a whole. To me, the theme on this tribe is confidence, and the other theme on this tribe is lack of a supreme Jonathan type physical presence.
Yeah.
I
I
don't know.
will make this. I'll make my hot take right now, and I'll say it off the bat early.
Wow.
This tribe will be the focal point of pre-merge.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think that the only competition for them would be our first tribe, Ika. I think that they have some dysfunctional personalities potentially that'll be clashing. But I could see this tribe now looking sort of like an UA, and I mean, it's definitely potential, right?
I mean, but Kale, I don't know how you're like Mike Turner. To me, seems like a clear physical threat here. The guy's been a firefighter his whole
He's
life.
58.
Oh, we can't spoil
I
our
understand.
thoughts here. Let's.
I know. We'll get to him. We'll get to him.
Yeah.
But I just don't know how you're saying there's no physical threat here. I think that's.
It's a difference. I
think that's
agree
a
with
little
Kale
silly.
on that. It's a difference, but yeah. I mean, we'll get into it, right? We'll
For sure.
Sorry, I had to drop
Get
my
the hot take out. I get it.
No,
you
I
want to
like
get it
it.
off your
Now,
chest. Get it out.
to bring Chanel down from that +3 that Kale just gave her. To me, she's another person who said she's going to win because she loves the game.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like we said earlier, I don't love that. And then
Did she also say Kim was her favorite?
Let's
she
see.
might have. I forget.
Yeah, Kim Spradlin played a perfect game, so just trying to keep that same energy.
Yeah, and I know Kale doesn't like that.
To me, every time that you either mention Kim, you mention Tony, you mention Sandra, is there really that much depth to that answer? Yeah, I mean, everybody would love to play what would be called some of the more perfect games ever was. I guess maybe not necessarily in the case for Sandra, but she won twice, so she's considered the queen for a reason. But when you say Kim is your favorite survivor, I mean, she went on one of the most poorly casted seasons. She dominated. I'm not taking anything away from her. She was awesome, and
Yeah.
she also showed a lot of that prowess, even in Winners at War.
Yeah.
But my problem is that when these people describe, I'd like to see an answer about somebody that maybe didn't win the show, but exuded a lot of traits that a winner might have, but maybe ran into some poor luck, because half of this game is luck. I shouldn't say that. Not half the game is luck, but, well, the way it's trending, it might be half luck. But
I would
but
hope not.
no, I know. But that's my point, is that when somebody says Kim or Tony or one of these guys or
Yeah.
women or as their favorite or how they want to model their game, yeah, I mean, that's super easy
Yeah.
to say that you want to do it that
Definitely.
way. I mean, how much insight does that really give into for me
Yeah.
to believe how you're going to play this game?
Kale, I'd like to think that, if we were doing a cast assessment of One World right now, I feel like we probably would peg Kim as the winner. Honestly, I think we would. I know that, that's, Monday morning
Hindsight
is always
quarterbacking.
Yeah.
But
I hope so.
she was a clear, far and away favorite. I mean, honestly,
It was
and that's not
domination in its purest form.
Yeah, the good news,
Domination
I
in
think,
its
yeah, the
purest
good news is that we don't really have that here. I want to bring up, I agree with what you're saying with everything like that, and I want to bring up a point about Jackson that I failed to mention, and it's a positive, is that he mentioned that he wants to play like Elaine, and I think that that's awesome, because Elaine is sort of like a new, quirkier character that sort of fits her own mold, and I think it's nice that, we're getting to see a little bit more about Jackson's personality by the person that she picks. I think that the problem with picking Kim is saying, I want to play a dominant game. Well, we know you do. We get that. Give me something about your personality, how it relates to another castaway's personality. That's sort of how I view it. It's almost like a cop-out in a way,
Yeah, it's the easy answer. I think another kind of strike for me was the embarrassing story interview for Chanel, where like her embarrassing story, the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to her was she fell in a race, which also we should talk about that. I mean, she was a track athlete in college. That's another potential physical threat, but. Her most embarrassing moment is falling in a race, and it just came off as super not self-aware to me. Like, you have to have had a more embarrassing moment than like falling in a race is a thing that happens. You know what I mean? That's a normal thing that happens.
But I guess all eyes on you, expectations. The stage is set for high performance. So I see
guess
it.
So. I guess
I don't mean to shut that down. I just
no, totally. I think it just stood out as a little bit of a red flag for me.
Yeah. Well, I want to
as I was watching it.
Yeah, I want to say openly, I think I'm pretty high on Chanel. I think that
I am too, but I am a lot of people on this tribe.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm high on her, and I would also say another thing about those interviews. One thing that she said is that she got a negotiation certificate, I think is what it was, from Harvard. And when asked why she did it, she said that she did it so that it would bolster her resume for Survivor. So I think that that's really interesting.
I love that.
It's great because clearly she's motivated. But let's just put yourself in an interview real quick, and somebody says, "Oh, this is a nice thing that I see on your resume. Why did you do it?" "Oh, because I wanted the job." Like that's not the right answer to the question.
Yeah, you just say because you care about it.
Correct, because it allows me to. Yeah, exactly. But it's a little bit of a resume patter almost to say I did it because I want this. Did you learn something from it? I hope.
I think that leads back to my earlier point of she's another one of those people who said she's going to win because of how much she loves the game. And that makes me worried is I worry that people like that, they don't have the outside real life skills to win Survivor. And so they try to brute force it.
Yeah.
And
no, I think the outside life skills we talked about earlier has a lot to do with age. She's 29. She lives in a busy city.
29 is a great age.
Probably dealing with a lot of different personalities on a daily basis. And to me, if we want to forecast it again, you already brought up Mike's name, so I'm at free liberty here to mention this. I think the top dog that comes out of this tribe is the player who gets Mike as their ally. That's how I look at this tribe.
I like that.
Well, let's transition to let's talk about Mike a little bit then, because we've brought him up twice, so we might as well get into Mike here.
Yeah, I agree.
Mike's 58. He's pretty old. He's from Hoboken, New Jersey. He's a retired firefighter. It sounded like from his interviews that he was leading, the company of firefighters. So he's got some leadership skills in there too. Toast, what are your thoughts on Mike Turner here?
I think just going into this that Mike sort of epitomizes, the old adage, don't judge a book by its cover. I think that Mike has a very tough exterior. He's physically fit, even though he's, on the older side. It's, he's active in his daily life. But I think that, deep down, he might be a bit of a teddy bear. I think he's emotional. Mm-hmm. It seems like has a high emotional intelligence. I think that he's able to connect readily with people. I think that if people give him a chance, I think that he'll be able to create really good bonds. I'm, again, cat's out of the bag. I'm pretty high, actually.
I think I agree.
You're high on Mike.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on him, actually.
No,
I am, because I think that first of all, let's look at past Survivor winners. I mean, Jeremy's a firefighter, right? We have Tom Westman also involved in the same sort of same.
How old was Jeremy when he first played?
He probably was in his younger 30s, I think. I mean, the average age of second chances was one of the highest ages because everyone's returners, right? So it's automatically their second time there. But he wasn't 58, if that's what you're trying to insinuate.
I'm coming off like I'm age shaming, and I don't want to do that at all. I've already said this for the other end of the spectrum as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be. I don't want to be labeled as an all-time age shamer in any way, shape, or form. But I also got to dial it back. Sim, you think that he can exert some physical dominance at the age of 58
compared to some of his other teammates? Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe on this tribe in particular, but I think this tribe is a mess because if you're saying
I don't think 58 is that bad for if you've led a very active lifestyle. He's been a firefighter his whole life. I think he could be a physical threat here. Absolutely.
I mean, who do we just have? What was the guy's name? Literally, and I'm sorry for the spoiler alert here on David vs. Goliath on Netflix. But literally, we see how old was what was his name on the first episode?
Oh well, that's situational, right? Pat.
Well, you're gonna say to me that Pat didn't have potentially some back ishes going into the game?
For sure.
Yeah,
Probably.
But, yeah, of course. But like,
Sadly, but
we have no
yeah.
indication that Mike. We're just gonna assume that Mike has a slipped disc problem.
For the record, Pat put together
No, but the
a
older you
phenomenal
get,
shelter.
the older you get, the more there's a reason to
I don't
believe
know.
that you
I
might
think
have
that's a freak accident. I think that was a freak accident.
a freak accident on the fact that he probably had some back issues going into the game.
My dude was
All
on
I'm saying
a
is
rough sea,
the
got
more
tossed
frail that
3
you
feet in the air.
It was stormy seas.
Landed on the bow of the ship.
But
I understand it was a
I
freak
get the
accident.
point. I get the point you're saying is that wear and tear of life. I get what you're saying.
especially as a firefighter.
For sure.
There's no.
But
He's got to be beaten up.
For sure, but he leads an active lifestyle. He looks physically fit. I understand the thought process. I definitely do. I'm not saying, like if you look at Joe from Korong, I mean, Joe was actually, he was 71, and he was jacked. I mean, Joe looked good, and his age really showed. But 71 is not the same as 58, right? So I think that there's something to be said about his physical prowess. I'm hoping that we're, maybe selling him a little short. I think that my emphasis, though, when I'm looking at him as a player, is actually more on the social and emotional level. And I think that
All right, good, because I like to talk about this piece of it. So go ahead.
no, yeah, so that's just what I'm saying. I mean, I feel like his story, his embarrassing story, was very touching and relatable. He talked about like mistakenly thinking somebody was pregnant while he was on duty, and how he his reaction when he found out was so cringy to himself that he just hugged the person and said sorry. I mean, I love that reaction. I think it's a really cool story, and it shows how he feels about interpersonal relationships like that. He's hugging a random person after he just mistakenly insulted her, and that's his main gut reaction is to sort of quell the problem that he just made. So I think that he's going to be good to work with. I do, and I think that he's going to be emotionally intelligent.
To me, I just don't see how he connects with a lot of these people on the tribe, other than the fact that actually he is in basically the New York City hemisphere, the Manhattan hemisphere. We have Chanel, him, and Jenny, who lives in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
They might all bond on that front,
it's a good
and
point
that's
to bring
why that's why I did say that I do believe that whoever he's aligned with is going to be in great shape, and that's why
that was
Chanel.
your hot take, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Well, no, my hot take was that the uber confidence that resides on this tribe is going to cause some fireworks.
Got it.
Which we still haven't, I don't think, talked about a couple characters that could end up leading to those said fireworks.
Yeah, definitely.
At the end of the day, I don't know how well he's going to connect. Being what Jenny is the closest to him in age, 15 years younger. Yeah. And then the next person is 28 years younger than him. Yes, you can connect on a level of a kid to parent type level, but to me that never ends up well for the parent figure. So
maybe Denise.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess Denise. But Malcolm probably would have won that game if he made it there. No?
I agree. I fully. I'm just putting everything out there, but I agree with what you're saying. I just hope that he's able to connect with his tribe on a personal level, and if he does so, I think that he'll go far.
Okay, well let's move on to somebody who maybe is a little bit less contentious within this group. Is High, 29 from.
Hi, how are you?
He's a data scientist. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but I had maybe neutral on the positive side, maybe on the low positive side.
You can't be low on high. You can't be low on high.
You can't be low on high.
No, you can't be low on high.
You got to be high on high.
For you to say that.
No,
for you to say there's no.
I said I was on the positive side of neutral.
You're on the high side.
You said you're on the low high side. That's what you just claimed.
I am on the positive side of neutral. He's neutral for me.
What does that mean? Spit it out, my friend.
I think he could do well, but I'm not over the moon with him. I think he could have a really good social game. Seems like he can handle himself and talk to other people. He seems like he's very smart as a data scientist.
Yeah.
I'm not I think he's definitely going to win the game, but I think he could potentially do well.
Yeah, I'm pretty overtly high on High. I think that Hai has great survivor intuition, it seems like, off the bat. In a lot of his answers, he just seemed very like coherent, articulate, like very like understanding of what it takes to be a winner. He falls perfectly into the age range, the average age of survivor winners. He has people around his age on his tribe that he can easily connect with. I mean, Chanel is also 29 years old. Like there's a lot that can be sort of, it's there for him, basically, is what I'm saying, for the taking. I hope.
I think it's
there for him.
I think it's there. I think it's there for a lot of players on this tribe, but that's why I keep rallying back to this point. This tribe is going to be a focal point of the pre-merge, and there's going to be some that fall, some that we may believe to be heavy hitters. And to be honest, we can rally it back to last season. And Voce, I think, maybe had some promise in the game, but we never really got a chance to see him because he was a part of a tribe that was pretty much a shit show from the start of the game.
Definitely.
So I think that we're going to see a lot from this Vati tribe that is really going to be telling about these players moving forward.
Yeah.
I agree with a lot of the points you just said about Hai. I think that he also has a tremendous amount of life experience going through, some different types of adversity, coming from Vietnam, being born there, to making his way. I think he grew up in Atlanta. Now he's in New Orleans, right?
Yeah, he said he was a latchkey child. Basically, he would let himself in after coming home from school because his parents were busy working, And
so for a 29-year-old, he's had to experience a lot, probably more than the average 29.
Yeah. So just one point I think that is interesting because it kind of like shows how this whole endeavor is like a little bit problematic, right? Just reading a cast based on what they're doing in their pregame interviews. You brought up Voce. If you were to go back right now and look at Voce's pregame interviews and compared it to how he played in the game, you would think they were two completely different people.
Oh, it's a polar opposite.
I agree with that.
I looked at Voce from the pregame press. I'm thinking this man, he's delusional, and then he came out. I'm being honest, and he totally was a different character, and I was like, wow, Voce has actual like he's a human. He was a caricature, and then he became a human.
I agree with that.
So I mean,
I thought he was going to struggle
making.
I thought he was going to struggle making relationships with how he came across in his pregame press. And again, it shows exactly what the problem and what we're trying to accomplish is. Yes, I'm with you 100%.
Mm-hmm. All right, Simi, low to high. Where are we? Just to wrap it up in a neat bow.
What? Fun. I'm high on high.
High on high.
Good.
Let's go.
I'm high
Good.
on high. All right.
Good.
Let's move on to our next player. I think this one.
I cannot wait to hear your top three and your winner picks because because I'm high on all both of you because this is going to be interesting because just because I'm high on high I am, but again this tribe's going to tell us a lot about the entirety of the game. So continue.
I think so.
Well, I think this next person we might have just as much to talk about. We have Daniel Strunk.
Yeah.
I think I have an idea of what how you both feel about him right now after some of our off mic conversations. But he's 30, from Cincinnati. He's a law clerk. And he certainly had a lot to say about the game and how he's going to play the game in his pregame interviews. Toast, I want to hear what you have to say first on Daniel here.
I think Daniel is going to be a great character. I think as far as self-awareness goes, maybe. As far as self-awareness goes, I think he's exhibited it in spades. I think that he shows in his pregame press, at least, that he knows that he's a threat. He knows he has a good story. He's a cancer survivor. He has the scars to prove it, like he said, on the island. Anyone in the healthcare field will be able to, discern that he's been through something. Yeah, exactly. Well, who knows what kind of healthcare, right? But he knows that, and he knows that Survivor got him through that, right? So that's just one piece of him. Another piece that I think is really interesting is, I think the highlight of all of the pregame press was when he showed us Strunk's Law, right? You guys watched that, right? And he shows, he goes into this. I like to go, if you guys will humor me, I like to go into it for a quick minute. He talks about the final 12 of David versus Goliath, where the majority alliance, right, tries to target Christian, 7 to 5, 7 Goliaths to 5 Davids, and It's the notorious minority vote split, right? So he argues that the Goliaths made a huge mistake, which is fair to say, but nobody had ever split in the minority alliance like that, you know? So I went back and I watched the episode because he claimed that not only should the Goliaths have split the vote 5-2 to match the 5 votes and hopefully end up in a tie, he said that the optimal play is to have the Goliaths split 4-3. And I went back and I watched and I couldn't see anything based on the information that we were given that makes sense. But he has a whole, manifesto, or 2 pages written on parchment, right? That he wrote in the bathtub that says that this is the optimal play, right? And I'm so curious to hear how he came up with that, because for me, I love this stuff. I already talked about the Suri vote split, right? I love that sort of aspect of Survivor. I can't see it, so I want to know what he's getting at with that.
Well, I think it might have been the opposite. At least if I'm remembering correctly, was he said that they could have done that the 5-2 with no idols.
No, so he's saying that 5-2, if they did that, then they wouldn't have to play any idols because the 5 would match the 5 if the Davids did not split the vote, which would be sort of conventional reasoning because the minority alliance had never split the vote successfully, right? Uh-huh. But he's actually saying we should split the vote. They should have split the vote 4-3, which means that you almost have to assume that the minority alliance knows that it's in their best interest to split the vote, which is just really high level thinking. And I don't know if that's necessarily evident in what we were shown as the viewer, which obviously he was a viewer just like us watching David versus Goliath. So, I think it's interesting because he's thinking about vote splits, right? One of the best moves recently, right, was Tony in the 4-3-2 to get out Sophie, right? In Winners at War. How do you get 4 votes to take out somebody when there's 9 people, right? A vote by plurality like that. And now those moves are what make seasons really interesting, right? That one vote was, I think, Tony's best accomplishment on the season. And if Daniel's thinking at this level right now, I hope that he's able to implement something like this. I think the only drawback may be that he's in his own head a little bit too much. And I think that might come to bite him.
Well, I think Toast, one other thing that I want to hear your thoughts on, because of our conversation earlier with Jackson, your red flag for Jackson was that he wanted to play honorably. Yeah. And Daniel very clearly in one of his interviews says that he has made the choice strategically, he says, to be very honest and never lie about any of his stuff. Is that still a red flag for you, or is that different than somebody saying, I want to play honorably?
I think if you slap the word strategically before anything, right, then...
Bullshit.
No, I think if the Jackson thing is a red flag for you, I think this also has to be a red flag.
But what stands out and what is the main differentiating factor between the two things is that one of them seems like it's thought out logically and reasonably, while the other one is like a gut instinct and a feeling, right? And I know that Survivor, a lot of times you play with your gut, right? People say that that's the thing that you should be listening to. But in this case, I think if you're playing from the heart, it's not the right move. If you're playing from the heart because it's strategic, then it is, if that makes any sense.
Seems like a cop-out. Kale, what are your thoughts on Daniel here?
I think that he's very articulate. I think he's going to end up being a very successful lawyer.
Yeah, good point, actually.
I do like that. He's got what seems to be a great feel on this game as a whole. But I'll keep saying this time and time again. This tribe's going to blow up in flames early, and I don't know who he aligns with. I don't know.
Well, he's 30, right? There's 2 people 29. There's already...
I understand that. Now I'm going to go stray away from the age discussion, because fuck the age discussion for right now, because again,
only when it pertains to Mike
is the wild card.
Yeah.
No, Mike is the wild card. Mike is the wild card, and I do think that ultimately it's going to be Mike and Chanel. But I also think then it comes a question about a battle between where does Daniel and Hai end up leaning to. Because I also want, I hope next we can talk about Jenny, because I think she'll also be a factor in here. Lydia's a wild card. Those are the 2 other people in this tribe. I'm sorry, I'm giving away what we're doing here.
Oh my
God.
God.
I think Lydia's a wild card. I cannot wait to see the interdynamics of this tribe in its entirety.
It's definitely the tribe I'm most excited about.
So Kale, you're saying you're having difficulty placing Daniel within the tribe that he fits into, right? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But as an individual, give me just a couple thoughts about it.
Well, I told you. His feel for the game is something that I believe that Jackson also has. So for Sim calling you out for one point in incongruence there, if I believe Jackson has a good feel, and I also believe Daniel has a good feel, I do have to like
Daniel sounds like he's talking about numbers. I love hearing it. Because if anything, so we talked about Tori. Everyone's thinking to themselves, how are they still talking about Tori? But we talked about Tori as the main TV threat. I think that Daniel is the main emergent behavior threat. I think that he wants to bring something new to this game, and I hope he has the possibility to do so. He seems like he wants to do something that we haven't seen before, and he wants to do something cunning and strategic is the way that I interpret what he's saying. I want him to have enough room to do it. He needs to get a little far in the game.
Yeah, I think too. I think my biggest worry with Daniel, and I'm very positive on Daniel. I think he could be a really great player, like you're saying, Toast. I think my one thing is just whether or not he's gonna be able to, not seem like a threat to everybody else. Because it seems very obvious to us that that he could potentially be a very good player. I think it's whether or not he can hide that from the other castmates. And I think that is going to be a really big struggle, especially with this whole being honest thing and the way he comes off as a person.
But the good news is if you're talking about managing your own threat level in the pregame interviews, that's a good sign,
It's
right?
a good sign.
It's a confidence sign. It means that you know that there's something that you have that will be a threat, and you're humble about it, but you're also saying, I need to manage this. That's a good sign, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, well, let's move on. I know, Kale, you wanted to talk about Jenny next, so let's get to Jenny. She's 43 from New York again. She's a creative director. What are your thoughts on Jenny Kim?
I'm really high on Jenny as well. I'm very high on Jenny. I'm hoping that she can embody her inner Chrissy Hoffbeck and make it to the end in a way where she's not running into Ben's ridiculous idol run that he ran into that you almost could not vote for him.
Well, that couldn't have happened on 41, so it's unlikely to happen in 42.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. She mentioned in her not in her pregame press, I think it was some of the info pieces that she gave to one of the entertainment articles. She mentioned Kelly Wentworth being her favorite player. If you guys know me, Kelly Wentworth is one of my favorite players of all time. To me, in Second Chances, which was a highly rated season in my viewpoint, she played a game that was really just second to Jeremy's, and I actually think she beats Jeremy if she sits next to him.
I do too. I think people. I think that's almost like well known. I would say. I think that's true. What you're saying, but continue.
Well, it would have been. I don't think it would have been.
It's not a 10-0 sweep.
Fair sweep.
It's not a 10-0
that's what I'm
sweep.
saying. No, it's absolutely not that. Jeremy played a ridiculously great game that game, but his one last feat that he had to accomplish was taking her out of the game.
Yeah.
Kelly Wentworth knew how to navigate a tribe and her castmates to a magnificent degree. I don't know if Jenny is that same type of person. Mm-hmm. She seems very smart. She seems accomplished in her, creative director role that she has as her occupation. But for her to pinpoint Kelly as one of her favorite players that she might want to embody a game after, that was telling to me. Mm-hmm. That goes back to the whole Kim point that I brought up earlier.
Yeah.
Kelly's someone that adds a little more depth to how you're viewing the game. I really, really like Jenny. My problem again here is that actually twofold here. My problem one is that she might get lost in the sauce here because Daniel, Chanel, I think are all going to be very strong personalities. I think Jenny might have a little bit to her of that being the same way, but she might fall back. That also might help her.
That might help her. I was going to say, yeah, that might help her. I think it's.
But I'm sorry to rant. But I like Jenny.
No, that's fair. That's good. I think that she's relatively polarizing too. I think that the things that I like about her and the things that I dislike about her are more intangible than any other cast member that we've discussed. I can't really pinpoint what it is. And we're talking about gut. I mean, I'm going with my gut on this one. I think that it's interesting that we're talking about Jenny in a way that's different than Mariah because they're relatively similar in age. I mean, both are on the relatively older, woman's, age side, and we're having a completely different conversation about the two of them, right? So I think that there might be something in her personality, something that she's conveying that is a little bit different, and I think that that bodes well for her. I just wish I could put a finger on exactly what it is, right? I don't know. I'm very much not confident in my assessment of her. If that, has any value to it at all, I'm not confident.
It's interesting to me that you guys are being pretty positive with Jenny because I was negative on Jenny.
Well, that speaks to my point, right? I mean,
when I first took my notes. Well, I think the reason I was negative was for two reasons. One, she was talking about a lot of her leadership skills. And that always makes me worried because I don't know that you want to be an obvious leader. I think you want to be leading an alliance from behind where nobody realizes that you've actually been, making the decisions. And then the other big thing for me, and I know I keep going back to this embarrassing story interviews, but she didn't have an embarrassing story. And that to me speaks to a lack of self-awareness. It's, you know what I mean? Like, the fact that you can't think of a single thing that was ever embarrassing for you, that's a problem to me.
In your estimation, that should be her embarrassing story, right? Now when she's asked that again, this is now what she'll answer, right? She should be embarrassed. She doesn't have an embarrassing story.
I don't know.
She'll listen to Sim on the Survivor Breakfast podcast, and then she'll understand at this point.
Yeah. Well, we all know they're listening in, so. All right. Well, I mean, we'll see how Jenny actually does when she gets out on the island. Let's hop on to our next contestant here.
This should be the final one, though.
The final one, Lydia Meredith, 22, from Virginia. She currently lives in Santa Monica. She's a waitress. I believe she answered in some of her interviews that she's an actress, but it seems like she's currently working as a waitress. Kale, what are your thoughts on Lydia here?
She falls in line with this theme that I have for this tribe, that she's got this super confidence about her. That was really apparent in her press pregame press. I think it's a little bit of fool's gold here with Lydia, though. I think she was coming off with a little bit of too overconfidence. I think that she was trying to crack jokes at every which way she could during her pregame press. She's not doing it for me. And again, she falls in line with being the age of 22.
Yeah.
Same with Zach. Same with Swati. I don't think that any of them have the necessary life experience of really not just life experience, but really people experience that, again, you talked about the age, and I don't know why age has been the biggest theme almost for us this entire time here, but I think it matters. And she said that the average age of the winners right around the 30-year mark. Yeah. So, again, I don't think Lydia, she might seem like she is wiser beyond her years, but I don't think she really is.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just going to point out, I know we talk about, the question, which Survivor player will you play most like? And she brings up Tom Westman, Suri, and Debbie. I mean, that's a crazy amalgamation of players. They all have different sort of...
That's almost a testament to my
point. Well,
she's
maybe she wants to play like a chameleon, or maybe she doesn't know exactly how she's going to play, right? So there's two different ways that you can look at it. But I can't think of, if you pulled random survivors out of a hat that you would say that you would play like. I mean, you might not get any more random than that. I mean,
she meant Debbie Warner.
Debbie Co-Wrong Debbie. Yeah.
Yes. That's crazy.
I mean,
well, I think it sounded like to me. Like in that answer, she ends it with time will only tell. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that she's talking about three different people. I think she's clearly trying to communicate to us I'm going to be adaptable here.
Yeah, she's
if I need to be the crazy person,
I see that.
I'm going to do that. To be honest with you, I'm pretty positive on Lydia.
Wow. Okay.
Honestly, I know she's young. I know that is, a red mark on her potential here. But we've got a season with a ton of really young people.
Yeah, we do.
There's the average age here is pretty low. I know we've got some outliers on the upper side too. I think she seems extremely likable. To me, she comes off like a.
Oh, I disagree.
I think she's super likable, at least from what I've seen. To me, she comes off like a merge between Evie and like Mike White, where she's like super nice, can do jokes. I thought Evie was a great player. I think she kind of got screwed with how she got off of that last season.
I agree.
I think Lydia, if given the right situation that maybe Evie didn't get, could really go really far in this game. I'm pretty positive on her, honestly.
Yeah.
No, to me, I disagree. I don't think that Evie comparison's correct. So
I feel like
I'm going to call wrong on that.
She comes off more like Sydney, I would say, from last season. If I had to.
Oh no way! I don't think she. Dude, Sydney to me is closer to like a Tori vibe.
Well, no, like
we are back on Tori. We have to get Tori on the show. We have to speak with Tori.
If it's not obvious.
Hold on. Calm down for a second here. Lydia to me
volatile
it was
the word. That's what I was
volatile, and it was forced
volatile?
humor. It was forced humor.
It's like
it was forced humor.
It's like if you want to play like this person and this person and this person, and they all play completely different games, then that's volatility, is it not? I mean, that's unpredictable.
Who was the middle person? She said
she wants to play like all three of them. She's saying I could play. Fine, I could be any of them. She's trying to communicate adaptability.
She's fucking around.
I think that's fine
get that
too.
vibe?
So you think it's a non-answer?
Mike White was also fucking around.
No, yeah, that's what I'm asking. Do you think that she was serious
and he was
in
a
that answer?
phenomenal player.
Like, are we taking it too literally, that answer? Or
I think you guys are taking it too literally.
Okay, and that's fine. But yeah, I mean, definitely possible. If she's fucking around,
you can't say she's joking the whole time and then take this one perfectly seriously. I think that's ridiculous.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I get your points. I just think she's here to fuck around.
I am more neutral. I would say more neutral. So we have one high, one neutral, one low. Is that correct?
So
we have two highs.
No. I'm neutral.
Toast is neutral. You're negative. I'm
There's
high.
Also high on the tribe.
Okay. All right.
True.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot about the cast members of this Vati tribe, and I know we've talked a little bit about overall dynamics, but what are our thoughts?
Yeah, I wonder
what
Kale thinks. I wonder what Kale thinks about Vati.
I think we've got a good idea of what Kale thinks here, but I'll toss it to you anyways, Kale. Give us your summary of the Vati tribe.
I'll keep it short. I do think that they're going to be the focal point of the pre-merge stage of this game. I do think that whoever comes out with Mike as their ally is going to be a premium threat in this game. I personally think it's going to be Chanel and Mike, with a third either being Daniel, Jenny, or Hai. Mm-hmm. Lydia's a wild card. Even though I'm down on her, she can be a wild card in terms of if she is here fucking around like I think she is. she might cause even more flames to the fireworks situation that I think is going to ensue here. So to me, I cannot wait to see how this tribe interacts.
I love that. I do want to ask too, because I'm not sure that we actually got the answer. Why do you think the person who aligns with Mike Turner, wins this game? Why is it pairing with him?
I didn't say win this game. I did not say win this game.
Does well in the tribe.
Basically, survives the pre-merge is what you're trying to say, right?
Why do you think? Why do you think pairing with
exactly
Mike
what I'm saying.
Turner is gonna, really accelerate?
Because I'm purely talking from a number standpoint. I think Mike's going to be loyal to whoever he's with. I think he's going to be loyalty to a fault. So I think Mike's a massive number for you to have on what could be one of the more volatile tribes in the history of Survivor.
Yeah, because he's going to be that auto vote. All right.
So now,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to just ask you guys, just now that we're wrapping up for all three, if you had to map them on to last season's tribes, right? Who would be who? Right? Like, who do you think Yase is of these three tribes? I mean, I could just say it out loud. I think that the Yase dysfunctionality is going to be evident in Ika. I think that Vati, which we're talking about right now, is more akin to Ua, which does not bode well for the majority of these really fun characters that we may lose early.
Agree.
Right, and then that just leaves Luvu right in the middle, and I think that it maps on honestly a little bit like too nicely. Maybe we're just forcing it. But
I think it's a slight force.
But just as an exercise, right? Like who maps onto who, right? I mean, like Ua was a tribe that went down to two people, right? And Matt Singh is like the most notorious tribe, right? In Survivor Philippines to go down to two people. But the two tribes are completely different in my mind, you know? Like for me, I guess Matt Singh, like the only people that I was really interested in knowing how they operated were the two that survived, you know? For Ua, we had so many great characters leave early. Say what you will about JD, you know, like at least he was good.
It was
television.
a whirlwind. It was a whirlwind of a
Brad, you blink your eyes. He's at the water well. He's at Ponderosa. He's gone. I mean,
he could be at my house. He could be at my house right now.
He could literally be anywhere.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, you know, as an exercise, who maps onto who, and I think it's maybe not 1-to-1, right? But it's kind of similar. I think.
Very, very interesting take. I like the comparison, even though I do agree it's a little bit of a stretch to do
For
it.
sure.
But I think it's an interesting exercise for sure. And I agree with your assessment, honestly. Well, now that we've gone through this cast, though, I want to have our final little segment here, and this is where all the die get cast. Excuse the pun from last season's weird.
It'll be
die.
here too.
I know.
Oh, I think it will be. As well.
I do have to pause this and just say, the fact that they had die and you don't roll the die, you just
you've been on about this.
Made me so sad.
That's a great point.
Every item that they had last season, they used it improperly. They have a die that they don't roll. They had an hourglass that you smash.
You don't smash hourglasses?
Yeah, like what? It makes me so mad. But now that we've gone through all of these different cast members, I want to go through each of us, and I want each of us to pick our top 3, and out of those 3, pick who you think is going to win this season. And then also as a fun little aside, pick who you think your TV entertainment winner is.
You
know, you're the most excited for. I think everybody knows who we're going to pick for all of those. But Kale, I'm going to put it to you first. Who are your top 3 players here, and who out of those 3 you think is going to win?
All right, so we're not saying final 3. We're talking about who.
Who do you think has the best chances? Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll just go. I'll go 3, 2, 1, and how I feel about these individuals here.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It's tough because I don't really love Ika. I don't really like the prospects. You have Swati and Zach, who to me, honestly, I didn't say this point before. I think Zach's highest potential is being able to, use his words as wisely as we think Daniel might use his words. So to be honest, I think Daniel is going to end up outsmarting Zach if they ever, got to a point where that might, happen. But that was an aside. I apologize. I really like High's chances. I'm going to put him at number 3 for me. This tribe, as I've mentioned time and time again, will exert fireworks. I think High is going to be a winner that comes out of this tribe in terms of surviving to the merge. With that being said, I think my number 2 is actually Chanel, because I do think Chanel is going to align with Mike, and I said that's going to be key for whoever can win this game, or I'm sorry, I should just say whoever has a high chance of winning this game has to make it out of the Vati tribe as it is. I think Mike's going to be a big pawn in doing so. So I think all 3 of them personally are going to work together, and I think they are going to survive through unless it gets to 2, like we just said that it could from last season. So I think it's the 3 of them who are going to work together, which I guess Lydia can come in and, tear that all apart, and she can be a piece of the pie here. But with that all being said, you have to look at what happened with Luvu last season. And I hate to layer the similarities, but I think there will be some congruence between the 2 seasons. I think you have to look at what happened with Luvu, and you have to take who might be a strong player out of this tribe, because I do think that they're going to survive in numbers when it comes merge time. They're just, to me, what seems to be the strongest tribe through and through in terms of the pre-merge challenges. And I alluded to it before. I went to war for him before. Jackson is my winner pick for this season.
Wow.
I think that he's going to work, if he can work with Maria, who I also, again, think that she's the Mike of that tribe in terms of having her as a number is going to be key. If he can work with Jonathan, that's going to be key because I don't think Jonathan really has a way or a path to really winning this game. If he can work with Lindsay, I think that she's going to be a loyal to a fault type of person as well. Omar and Marianne, I don't know. I think they'll work together. But to me, Jackson seems to have his head pointed in a direction of being able to maneuver his tribe the best in terms of the tribe that I do believe to be the strongest. And if he comes out with the numbers on top, I think he's going to be able to wield the numbers in the best manner. So Jackson is my winner pick for season 42.
Wow. Very interesting. Toast. It's up to you now.
I mean, I think you guys are going to be upset to hear that I'm going through these players in my head in real time. I think that if you were to look into,
I would hope that we spurn some thought-provoking conversation.
Definitely. I mean,
internally for you.
For sure. I mean, these are all great. Everyone has great points, obviously, you know. I'm tossing and turning. I mean, I agree with Kale that you need to be looking and seeing which tribe is going to be getting there to the merge with the most health, right? So I'm a little biased in that sense. I would say probably for me, number 3 would be Omar. I think that Omar has the chance. Wow. I think Omar has the chance on that tribe to do well. I really don't know, honestly. I really don't know. And then probably I would say my number 2 would be High. I think that High's archetype does very well. I think that High may play a similar game to a Ricard, sort of like maybe a Ricard. I don't know if he'll be as successful in individual challenges, but I think he's thoughtful in the same way.
He could. He looks extremely physically fit.
Yeah. And then I guess my own personal bias will come into play because you want to root for somebody. And when I think about who I want to root for, I want to root for Daniel. I do. I like Daniel a lot. I want to know what he's going to bring to the table. I'm worried that he's going to overthink himself out of the game. I want that not to happen. I want him not to have to worry about getting voted out at the next tribal. And the second that you start worrying about getting voted out at the next tribal, right, then you're doomed. But, you know, we talked about what we think about in a winner, right? And I think that, you know, a subtle point to a winner is knowing, you know, that you need to play your most optimal move at any given point, and you need to convince other people to play suboptimal moves, right? And I think that we go back to last season and we say, you know, the winner's edit for Erica was a little shrouded. But there was one confessional where the whole tribe was deciding between whether or not to vote out Danny or Deshawn. And Erica looked at the camera and said that it's in everybody else's best interest to vote Deshawn out, but it's in my best interest for Deshawn to stay. And what happened? She convinced the people around her to make a suboptimal move, right? And I think that Daniel has the thought process. I think that he can make that happen, where he can make other players make suboptimal moves that will allow him to do well. I don't know.
I'm gonna wait for Simmy to speak to rebut to that point, but go ahead, Sim.
I think I'm going to keep mine short and sweet because I think it is both a nice marriage of the two of yours as well as being a little bit of a contrarian. My number 3 spot, you guys are going to love this, Lydia.
Wow.
I really do think she can do well. I think she is likable. I know you guys disagree with that. And I think with how I know Young is bad, but there's a lot of young people out here, and I think she could slip.
Young is not necessarily bad. I don't want that to be the
I know, but we've been talking a lot about it.
From this podcast.
It's not necessarily a positive. My number 2 spot is going to be Jackson Fox.
Yes,
I think he could be a really great player in this game. I think he really has, you know, a good chance of having a really, really strong social game. I'm excited to see it and see how he does, as well as, you know, a physical threat. He's a big guy as well. And then finally, my number one spot, unfortunately, Kale is aligning with Toast here. It's going to be Daniel Strunk. I am just so excited to see what he has to offer this season and see what he does. I think my only worry is again him being able to play an analytical game without coming off like he's playing an analytical game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be, if he can surmount that, I think he's got a really good chance out there.
I love this, and we're gonna have so much fun this season. Daniel will not make it past week 3. He will fall short. He will fall short in the face of Chanel, High, and Mike. That's just how I feel. I don't think that he aligns well on this tribe. He will not make it past week 3.
Yeah, what about Lydia though? She's gonna be great.
I said this. I think Lydia is a wild card, and she could blow up everything that I've said tonight or today or whenever you're listening to this. Lydia can be a wild card. Yeah, and there's actually a couple of them on this cast.
Another wild card, just want to throw it into the mix. Coming from the Strong tribe, I think Lindsay actually could come into play.
I think she definitely could.
I think she's going to be loyal to a fault. I think she's going to be loyal to a fault.
I think that she may map on to Kara, right, from David versus Goliath. I can see her playing a similar game. She's physically fit like Kara. She has that social aspect to her that I think she'll do well with, and she's already starting on the Goliath tribe, so to speak, right? So we'll see. I mean, that's another wild card.
What I would love is the final 6 to be the entirety of the Ika tribe.
That would be unbelievable. Well, I think the last thing I want to hit on is that point. Is the thing I mentioned earlier is the person we're most excited to watch here, and I think we're all in agreement. I think it's Tori. I think we're the most excited to watch is Tori, and actually, as an announcement, we're going to be renaming this podcast to The Tori Show, and that's all we're going to talk about every week, all week. Well, thank you guys for sitting down with me today. We're talking through this cast. Excited to see how these people play as we get out into the actual season next week. Really excited to see what happens.
I can't wait for the premiere. It really, to me, with how well they casted the first show and season coming out of the COVID pause, if they got anywhere near half as good of a cast, that at least from a casting perspective, this season should be very good.
Yeah.
Let's see how they attack the producing point of view of this whole piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually am not high on how they're going to handle that piece because of what they did in season 41. So fingers crossed for me.
Yeah, I mean it's obvious that we're excited, right? We wouldn't be here if we weren't. So no.
Well, join us next week. We're going to be talking about the first episode of season 42 of Survivor. Really excited to see how it goes. See you boys then.
Sounds good.
See you, Sim. See you, Toast.